happenings in the economic sector of society to our discerning viewers. This program is aimed at bringing to the doorstep of viewers the business, financial and economic activities from all strata of society. Its deliveries are centrated through the various stock exchanges across the world, news about government economic activities, private sector business activities, laced with expert opinions, stakeholders analyses and correspondence reports. First, the headlines. On investments, Abia targets 120 billion naira internally generated revenue in 2025. On power sector, 200 billion naira per monthly electricity subsidy benefits reach Nigerian sustainable aid. On foreign exchange market, CBN extends $25,000 weekly forex sales to BDCs till May 30. And on cybercrime, EFCC arraigns 42 foreigners firm over 792 cryptocurrency romance fraud. And on financial statement, Geregu makes 137 billion naira. PAT rises 71%, declares 21.25 billion naira dividends. On trade war, Nigeria braces for impact as US tariffs signal fresh inflation concern. We are open for advert placement, bookings and commercials. You can connect with us on all our Atn socials on Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, on Twitter, Atlantic TV Net, or you can watch us live on our website at www.atlanticnetwork.tv. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we head straight into our stories. Do stay tuned. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Abia State government has stated that it is targeting a 120 billion naira internally generated revenue in the 2025 fiscal year. The State Commissioner for Information, OK Kano, disclosed this on Monday while briefing newsmen on the outcome of the week's State Executive Council meeting chaired by the State Governor Alex Oti, stating that IGRO is vital for supporting and sustaining its developmental programs. He further disclosed that the state government plans to scale up its IGRO, stating any responsible government at all levels, whether at the federal or subnational levels, take the issue of internally generated revenue very serious. This is because it is the IGRO that enables the government to support and sustain its developmental programs. The Abia State government is not different. Since the inception of this government, the state government has done very well in its pursuit of internally generated revenue. The state government may not be where it wants to be, but in terms of figures, the state government has done very well. It has to be put on record that in the past year, the state surpassed these set targets in that regard. In the 2025 budget, the state government has planned to scale up its IGRO base by targeting about 120 billion naira, which amounts to about 207% increase over the IGRO target of the previous year. Kano, however, stated that over 17,000 teachers have applied for its advertised teaching positions in both primary and secondary schools in the state. Renowned real estate developer and entrepreneur Dr. Kennedy Okonkwo has revealed that property prices in Lagos have doubled in under 3 years, surging from about 45 million to 94 million naira in some locations. He made this known in an exclusive interview with Stephen Nduku, cited by newsmen online on Monday, where he attributed the sharp increase to rising demand, infrastructural development, and the growing interest of investors in the real estate market. In Lagos, real estate remains one of the most stable and rewarding asset classes. Despite economic fluctuations, properties in prime locations have continued to appreciate significantly. Two-bedroom terrace with BQ initially sold for between 45 million naira and 50 million naira about 2 to 3 years ago. Now it is priced at 94 million naira. Buyers who purchased at the earlier price have seen their investment double, 100% return on investment, Okonkwo said. The surge in property values has been particularly evident in high-demand areas such as Lekki, Ikoyi, and Victoria Island, where land scarcity and luxury developments have pushed prices upward. Industrial players also point to an influx of multinational companies and increased interest in short-let apartments as factors driving the real estate boom. Okonkwo further noted that even emerging areas like Ipeju, Lekki, and Ekpe are experiencing rapid appreciation. Investors who bought land for 10 million naira a few years ago are now selling for double or even triple the price, he said. While this upward trend has been favorable for investors, it has also made home ownership increasingly difficult for young Nigerians. Mortgage options remain limited, and high interest rates make financing a property purchase a challenge. The reality is that real estate is becoming a wealth-building tool, but for first-time buyers, affordability is a growing concern. This is why many developers are introducing flexible payment plans and off-plan sales to ease entry into the market, Okonkwo added. As Lagos continues to expand, experts predict that property prices will keep rising, making real estate investment a lucrative option for those who enter the market early. However, Okonkwo emphasized the need for government intervention to improve housing affordability and expand mortgage accessibility for middle-income earners. With ongoing development projects and increasing demand, the Lagos real estate market remains one of the most dynamic in Nigeria, offering both opportunities and challenges for investors and prospective homeowners, he said. Federal government has said it spent 200 billion naira to subsidize electricity monthly. According to the government, this amount benefits the wealthiest 25% of Nigerians rather than those who truly need assistance. The special advisor to the president, Bola Tinubu, on energy, Olu Virgin, stated this in a statement on Monday. Virgin is reacting to reports quoting her stating that the electricity tariff will soon be jacked up by 2/3 in order to strengthen the power sector. Reacting, the special advisor did not deny the looming tariff hike. She, however, maintained that she did not say the tariff would be raised by 65%. It has become necessary to clarify media reports suggesting an imminent 65% increase in electricity tariffs. This is a misrepresentation of what I actually said in a recent press interview. I highlighted the fact that following the increase in Band A tariffs in 2024, current tariffs now covers approximately 65% of the actual cost of supplying electricity, with the federal government continuing to subsidize the difference, she said. Verhegen noted that while the government is indeed committed to ensuring fairer pricing over the long term, the immediate focus is on taking decisive action to deliver more electricity to Nigerians, ensure fewer outages, and guarantee the protection of the poorest and most vulnerable Nigerians. In line with these, she disclosed that the federal government's power sector priorities include working towards a targeted subsidy system to ensure that low-income households receive the most support. Today, the federal government spends over 200 billion naira per month on electricity subsidies, but much of this support benefits the wealthiest 25% of Nigerians rather than those who truly need assistance. To address these, the federal government is working towards a targeted subsidy system to ensure that low-income households receive the most support. This approach will make electricity more affordable and accessible for millions of hard-working families, she stated. On the fear that unmetered customers will be made to pay for services not enjoyed if the tariff is increased now, she stressed that the federal government would address this through the presidential metering initiative. Central Bank of Nigeria has extended the temporary access guarantee to bureau de change operators for purchasing foreign exchange from the Nigerian foreign exchange market till May 30, 2025. This extension was disclosed in a circular issued on Monday by the Trade and Exchange Department of the Apex Bank, allowing BDCs to continue purchasing forex from authorized dealers under existing conditions. The circular referenced TED/FEM/PUB/FPC/001/003 and signed by Dr. W.J. Kanya, the acting director of the Trade and Exchange Department, referred to an earlier directive TED/FEM/PUB/FPC/001/030 issued on December 19, 2024. The previous circular had granted temporary access to existing BDCs to source foreign exchange from authorized dealers with a weekly cap of $25,000 initially set to expire on January 31, 2025. The directive has now been extended for another 4 months until May 30, 2025. The CBN stated that all other terms and conditions outlined in the previous circular remain unchanged. The extension shows the bank's commitment to maintaining a fully functional foreign exchange market, ensuring liquidity and addressing retail demand for eligible invisible transactions. It added that it would continue to provide liquidity when necessary to manage price volatility. The circular read, "We refer to our circular TED/FEM/PUB/FPC/001/030 dated December 19, 2024, which granted temporary access to existing BDCs to the NFEM for the purchase of FX from authorized dealers, subject to a weekly cap of USD 25,000.00. The expiry date of January 31, 2025, which was granted in the above-mentioned circular, has been extended to May 30, 2025. All other terms and conditions in the above-mentioned circular remain unchanged. The CBN remains committed to a fully functional foreign exchange market and will continue to provide liquidity when necessary to manage price volatility." The decision comes at the time when the country's FX reserves are dropping fast. Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves experienced a significant decline in January 2025, dropping by $1.11 billion over the course of the month. According to data from the CBN, the country's reserves stood at $40.88 billion on January 2, but by January 30, they had fallen to $39.77 billion. This represents a 2.72% decrease within 1 month. The decline in the reserves follows ongoing interventions by the CBN in the foreign exchange market, as well as external debt servicing obligations and capital outflows. While the naira appreciated significantly within the same month, The reduction in reserves seems to suggest that the CBN may have deployed part of its FX stockpile to stabilize the local currency and manage liquidity in the official market. By allowing continued access to forex, the Apex Bank aims to enhance liquidity at the retail end of the market, ensuring that BDCs meet the demand for personal and business-related transactions. Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) on Monday arraigned 42 foreign nationals before separate federal high courts in Lagos for their involvement in an alleged 792 cryptocurrency and romance fraud scheme. The accused foreign nationals include 29 Chinese, 10 Filipinos, 1 Malaysian, 1 Indonesian, and 1 Pakistani. The suspects and a company, Gentin International Co. Limited, were arraigned before Justices Ayokunle Faji, D.I. Dipolu, Alexander Owe, and C.J. Aneke, respectively, according to EFCC. The Anti-Graft Agency disclosed on X that the suspects are members of the syndicate of 792 alleged cryptocurrency investment and romance fraud suspects arrested on December 19, 2024 in Lagos during a surprise operation tagged Eagle Flush Operation. They were arraigned on separate charges bordering on alleged cybercrimes, cyber terrorism, impersonation, possession of documents containing false pretenses, and identity theft, among others, EFCC added. Geregu Power PLC has announced an impressive audited financial year results and accounts for the full year ended December 31, 2024, with its profit before tax at 41 billion naira, an increase of 69% from the 24 billion naira declared in the 2023 financial year. The power generating company quoted on Nigerian Exchange Limited also announced 27.4 billion naira profit after tax in 2024, about a 71% increase from the 16 billion naira reported in 2023. The company said this is also the highest profits the company has declared since it became listed on the NGX and in the last 5 years. In a statement on Monday, the power company said it had an impairment charge of 9.45 billion naira in the year ending 2024, bringing its total impairment on receivables from NBT to 16.2 billion naira, which is about 12% of the outstanding sum at the end of 2024. If the impairment charges were to fall to a peer average of 6%, the company may have posted a profit of 50 billion naira, it was stated. The company's profit surge was on the back of 137.13 billion naira revenue in 2024, about 65.3% from 82.91 billion naira in 2023. The surge in revenues in the year under review was driven by 87.5 billion naira energy sold, a growth of 69% from 51.8 billion naira in 2023, and 49.66 billion naira capacity charge in 2024, representing an increase of 59.6% from 31.11 billion naira reported in 2023. With a double-digit increase in profits, the board of Geregu Power proposed a final dividend of 8.50 naira per ordinary share, about 21.25 billion naira, when compared to 20 billion naira in dividend paid to shareholders last year, the company announced. Dangote Refinery and other local refiners may continue to import crude oil as the implementation of the domestic crude supply obligation law totals on complex industry crisis. Although the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission (NUPRC) yesterday in Abuja warned that it would deny defaulting operators export permits, crude oil producers and stakeholders told newsmen that the regulator would only bring more crisis and litigation too hot for the country to handle. While Nigeria commenced the deal on October 1, 2024, hoping to supply about 400,000 barrels of crude oil per day to Dangote Refinery and 50,000 barrels per day to others, Dangote has returned to crude oil importation. However, energy scholar Professor Wumi Eledare emphasized the need for proper pricing and legal backing in the implementation of Nigeria's DCSO. Going by recent import data, there are indications that the refiner may import about 140 million barrels of crude oil from the United States, US, and other places before the end of 2024. Producers who spoke with newsmen noted that the domestic crude market, unless sanitized, might remain a mirage, stressing that the naira for crude deal, willing buyer and willing seller clause compulsory off-take arrangements, and existing future contracts which may last for over 3 years, including crude for loan deal, would continue to frustrate prevailing attempts. The Commission Chief Executive of NUPRC, Benga Komolafe, emphasized that diverting crude oil meant for local refineries is a violation of the law. He stated that any change to cargoes designated for domestic refining must receive express approval from the Commission. During a meeting at the weekend attended by over 50 key industry players, both refiners and producers traded blame over the inconsistencies in implementing the DCSO policy, while refiners accused producers of prioritizing exports over local supply, forcing them to seek alternative feedstock. Producers argued that refiners often failed to meet commercial and operational terms, necessitating the sale of crude in external markets to avoid financial losses and operational disruptions. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we will continue with the rest of our stories. Still stay tuned. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now to the rest of our stories. Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission (NUPRC) has warned that it will deny export permits for crude oil cargoes intended for domestic refining if oil companies do not fulfill their domestic crude obligations. The Commission Chief Executive (CCE), Mr. Gbenga Komolafe, insisted that any changes to cargoes designated for domestic refining must receive expressive approval from the Commission. Komolafe, in a letter dated February 2, 2025, addressed to exploration and production companies and their equity partners, reiterated that diverting crude oil meant for local refineries violates the law. At a recent meeting attended by more than 50 critical industry players, both the refiners and producers blamed each other for the inconsistencies in the domestic crude supply obligation policy implementation. They, however, agreed that the regulator has put in place appropriate measures for effective implementation. The refiners had claimed that producers were not meeting supply terms and preferred to sell their crude outside, forcing them to look elsewhere for feedstock. The producers countered that refiners hardly met commercial and operational terms, forcing them to explore other markets elsewhere to avoid unnecessary operational bottlenecks. Komolafe therefore cautioned against any further breaches from either party and advised refiners to adhere to international best practices in procurement and operational matters. He reminded producers not to vary the conditions stated in the DCSO policy without obtaining express permission from the Commission before selling crude oil outside the agreed framework to avoid abuse. The Executive Secretary referenced Section 109 of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021, which aims to ensure a stable supply of crude oil to domestic refineries and strengthen the nation's energy security. According to Komolafe, the Commission will henceforth strictly enforce the policy regarding implementation and defaults by oil companies. He stated that significant regulatory actions have already been taken by the Commission in line with the enabling laws to enforce compliance with the Domestic Crude Supply Obligation (DCSO). These actions include the development and signing of the Production Curtailment and DCSO Regulation 2023, as well as the creation of the DCSO Framework and Procedure Guide for implementation. African markets, including Nigeria, may be up for a new scramble in the months ahead following the brewing tariff war between the United States and its three top trading partners, Canada, China, and Mexico. While opinions are still largely divided on how the rivalry will affect African economies, Nigeria, which is among 48 countries with a trade deficit with the United States, may not be a passive observer of the crisis. Trump, during his campaign, vowed to close the U.S. trade deficit in his America First agenda. He has made his promise with the 10 to 25 new tariff impositions on the country's neighbors, Canada and Mexico, as well as China, a country often described as a global manufacturing machine, taking effect today. The three countries have also laid out their retaliatory measures, even as responses are expected from the allies as well as those of the U.S. Nigeria gradually is coming off its non-allegiance posture and beginning to proactively identify its friend in the global order. For instance, the country recently joined the BRICS Plus, a bloc President Donald Trump had warned about when he said he would impose 100% tariff sanctions on those who sought to decimate the dollar. BRICS, from its inception, made no pretense about its plan to dethrone the dominance of the dollar, which has fallen from 80% to about 40% as a reserve currency. Nigeria's flirt with BRICS thus suggests that the country has allied with enemies of Trump's U.S., which put the country at the center of the emerging trade. More so, China, the leading promoter of BRICS Plus, would henceforth see Nigeria as a potential ally for trade and other collaborations. There are fears that as China gets increasingly cut off from the lush U.S. market, it will become more aggressive in taking over the African market, which Nigeria serves as a gateway. The possibility puts Nigerian manufacturers, which are burdened by inefficiencies imposed by poor infrastructure and higher costs of energy, at the mercy of Chinese goods and makes competition tougher for the local brands. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, had stated that Nigeria was not worried by the trade policies or tariff imposition. According to her, Nigeria is less concerned about the potential disruptions posed by Trump's unorthodox foreign policies. With the ongoing trade war between the U.S., China, Mexico and Canada, Oduwole said Nigeria would not engage in any divisive bloc politics as it is open to partnership with both old and new friends. She said there are many interests competing for Nigeria and for Africa's attention, pointing to the country's wealth in hydrocarbons and critical minerals like lithium. For us, it is Nigeria first, it is Africa first. We see this more in terms of opportunities. We're not afraid, we're not panicked. We'll be listening closely to what our old friends and new friends have to say and the kind of partnership that are on offer, she said. U.S. President Donald Trump has vowed to cut off all future funding to South Africa, citing concerns over land expropriation and alleged discriminatory treatment of some residents, particularly foreigners, in the country. Trump mentioned these in a post shared on his Truth Social on Sunday after South African President Cyril Ramaphosa signed an expropriation bill into law, allowing the government to seize land without compensation in certain cases. The newly passed legislation in the country permits expropriation without compensation only in circumstances where it is just and equitable and in the public interest to do so. This includes if the property is not being used and there is no intention to develop or profit from it, or when it poses a risk to people. Although Mr. Trump did not explicitly say so, he is believed to be defending white South Africans, some of whom have alleged that South African policy is unfair to them. In South Africa, one of the legacies of the apartheid system is the profound inequality in land ownership. While South Africans comprise less than 10% of the country's population, but owns about 72% of its agricultural land, the 1913 Native Lands Act made it illegal for Africans to acquire land outside the reserves, known as homelands. Since the end of apartheid in 1994, the country has been making efforts to address historical disparities. However, the government's efforts to speed up the process through an expropriation without compensation policy have been highly controversial, sparkling backlash from conservative figures. Among the critics is Elon Musk, a billionaire entrepreneur born in South Africa who has close ties with the U.S. president. Earlier in 2018, Mr. Trump condemned efforts to redistribute land, arguing they undermine property rights. In his recent post, Mr. Trump did not specify what aid to South Africa would be cut off, but stated that this measure would be in place until an investigation had been conducted. South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly. It is a bad situation that the radical left media doesn't want to so much as mention. As a massive human rights violation, at a minimum, is happening for all to see. I will be cutting off all future funding to South Africa until a full investigation of this situation has been completed, he said. Elon Musk's aides have taken control of the U.S. Treasury Department's payment system, which manages trillions of dollars of transactions each year, sparking alarm among critics. The Treasury's closely guarded payment system handles the money flow of the U.S. government, including $6 trillion annually for Social Security, Medicare, federal salaries, and other critical payments. Musk's control of the payment system was approved by incoming Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and was made possible when a career official was put on administrative leave on Friday after refusing to hand over access. The Washington Post first reported. The official subsequently retired from the department, a source close to the matter told AFP. Trump on Sunday praised Musk as a big cost cutter. Sometimes we won't agree with it and we will not go where he wants to go, but I think he's doing a great job, he added. Democratic lawmakers have expressed deep concerns about political operators having access to the U.S. government's money flow, pointing possible systemic risks to the economy. United States and Canada on Monday reached an agreement to postpone newly announced tariffs for 30 days, following discussions between Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and U.S. President Donald Trump. According to the New York Times, the The agreement includes increased cooperation on border security and measures aimed at addressing issues such as drug trafficking and money laundering. Should you announce the development on Monday on X, I just had a good call with President Trump stating that Canada will deploy nearly 10,000 police officers to enhance border security, classify drug cartels as terrorist organizations, and appoint a special official referred to as a fentanyl czar to lead efforts against the spread of the drug. Trump soon posted as well, focusing on fentanyl and emphasizing that tariffs will be paused for a 30-day period to see whether or not a final economic deal with Canada can be structured should you rule. The plan also involves a $1.3 billion investment in new border security technology, helicopters, and personnel. Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly, he said. Meanwhile, Ontario Premier Doug Ford has taken a firm stance in response to the U.S. trade measures. On Monday, he announced that the province would prohibit American companies from securing government contracts, citing the economic impact of the tariffs. As part of this policy, Ontario has also cancelled a $68 million agreement with Elon Musk's Starlink, which was set to provide high-speed internet to remote communities. Starting today and until U.S. tariffs are lifted, Ontario is banning American companies from provincial contracts, Ford stated. He added that Ontario's government agencies collectively spend around $30 billion annually on procurement, with an additional $200 billion allocated for infrastructure projects. The U.S. tariffs, which are scheduled to take effect on Tuesday, will impose a 25% duty on nearly all Canadian imports except for oil, which will be subject to a 10% surcharge. In response, Canada has announced its own set of retaliatory tariffs, imposing a 25% levy on $155 billion worth of American goods, including alcoholic beverages, fresh produce, clothing, and footwear. Ford described the situation as an economic battle, emphasizing that Canada had not initiated the trade dispute but was prepared to respond accordingly. The ongoing negotiations between the two countries highlight the broader economic and diplomatic implications of the trade policies, as both governments seek to navigate the impact on businesses and consumers on both sides of the border. Japan's SoftBank Group will form a joint venture with United States tech giant OpenAI to offer advanced artificial intelligence to businesses, the two companies announced on Monday. A memorandum of understanding has just been formally signed between SoftBank and OpenAI to establish a 50-50 joint venture. SoftBank Chief Executive Masayoshi Son said as he outlined the services of a new AI product called Crystal. A joint statement by the firm said SoftBank would spend $3 billion US annually to deploy OpenAI solutions across its group companies. At a meeting of around 500 Japanese businesses, Son, holding a purple crystal ball, said Crystal would use AI to provide customized support to companies by crunching system data, reports, emails, and meetings in real time. The joint venture will serve as a springboard for introducing AI agents tailored to the unique needs of Japanese enterprises while setting a model for global adoption, the statement said. Japan's SoftBank Group will form a joint venture with United States tech giant OpenAI to offer advanced artificial intelligence to businesses, the two companies announced on Monday. A memorandum of understanding has just been formally signed between SoftBank and OpenAI to establish a 50-50 joint venture, SoftBank Chief Executive Masayoshi said as he outlined the services of a new AI product called Crystal. A joint statement by the firm said SoftBank will spend $3 billion US annually to deploy OpenAI solutions across its group companies. At a meeting of around 500 Japanese businesses, Son, holding a purple crystal ball, said Crystal would use AI to provide customized support to companies by crunching system data, reports, emails, and meetings in real time. The joint venture will serve as a springboard for introducing AI agents tailored to the unique needs of Japanese enterprises while setting a model for global adoption, the statement said. SoftBank and OpenAI are already working together on the Stargate drive announced in January 2025 by U.S. President Donald Trump to invest up to $500 billion in artificial intelligence infrastructure in the United States. The announcement comes after Chinese AI newcomer DeepSeek stunned U.S. developers with its high performance and supposed low cost. Earlier on Monday, OpenAI unveiled a new tool for its hugely popular generative AI chatbot ChatGPT called Deep Research, which accomplishes in tens of minutes what will take a human many hours. We're going to a quick break, and when we return, we'll delve into the rest of our stories. We look at the stock market, foreign exchange market, and what the exchange rate is today. Do not go away. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. And now on to the stock market. U.S. stock futures wobbled, the dollar jumped, and Hong Kong shares slipped from 2 months highs on Tuesday as the U.S. and China set financial markets on edge with tit-for-tat tariffs that raised the specter of a broader damaging trade conflict. The trade war story remains alive and well, and this has a lot further to play out, said Shane Oliver, chief economist at AMP in Sydney, as prices skidded around on news headline. S&P 500 futures, which had bounced in relief that Mexico and Canada cut deals to delay a U.S. tariff hit, swung to a 0.2% loss. European futures fell 0.1%, and the euro sank between $1.02 on nerves. On nerves, Europe gets dragged in. Renewed selling pressure hit the Canadian dollar and Mexican peso. The dollar index was last up 0.2% at 108.78. Hong Kong's Hang Seng, which had scaled 2025 highs on expectations that China too would negotiate with U.S. President Donald Trump, pared gains to trade about 2% higher. An additional 10% U.S. tariff on Chinese exports took place at 0501 GMT, and minutes later, Beijing announced it was investigating Google and imposing tariffs on imports of U.S. oil, coal, gas, cars, and farm equipment from February 3rd. The situation is still very, very fluid. I am anticipating heightened uncertainty, dollar strength, and USD CNH above 7.40 said Jeff Ng, head of Asia Macro Strategy at SMBC in Singapore. The offshore yuan slid to 7.3236 per dollar after the U.S. tariffs took effect, and the more liquid Australian dollar, often seen as a proxy for the yuan, fell 0.7% to $0.6180. Chinese markets remain short for the Lunar New Year break, with investors focusing on where China fixes the currency trading band on Wednesday morning for clues to its negotiating stance. Trump's press secretary said he will speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping in the next few days, but unlike the North Americans, it is less clear where they will find common ground. It's a totally different story because China is an economic rival as well as political, said Naka Masuzawa, chief macro strategist at Nomura in Tokyo. Unless China makes huge concession economically, I really don't think Trump will stop this tariff. European shares extended losses on Tuesday, led by financials following UBS's quarterly earnings, as investors grew unsettled over fears of a trade war between top global economies, the US and China. The Pan-European Stock 600 index was down 0.3% as of 0940 GMT. The benchmark had logged its biggest single-day drops in more than 1 month on Monday. China announced tariffs on some US imports starting from February 10 in retaliation for Washington's 10% additional levies on Beijing, reigniting concerns about a trade war between the economies. The key driver right now is the trade tariff and just the uncertainty that seems to be coming with it, said Fiona Sinkota, senior market analyst at Citi Index, adding that latest developments will keep the market wary of a full-blown trade war erupting. Financial services index dropped 1.2%, dragged by a 5.1% fall in UBS Group, UBSG.S, despite the Swiss lender beating its fourth quarter profits forecast. UBS CEO Sergio M. Motti said higher capital requirements in Switzerland would hurt returns for stakeholders. Those comments would be sufficient to be able to put a dampener on otherwise upbeat numbers, because that's sort of pointing to lower returns going forward, Citi Index's Sinkota said. A look at the day ahead in European and global markets from Tom Westbrook Markets have taken a 1-month delay in tariffs on Canada and Mexico as a sign that everything's negotiable. Even for China, Canada's Justin Trudeau and Mexico's Claudio Sheinbaum got on the phone to Donald Trump on Monday and told him they had agreed to bolster border enforcement efforts. Sheinbaum won plaudits from political analysts for her approach, and investors seemed to relax sort of. Hong Kong shares touched a 2-month high led by electric vehicle makers as investors turned more hopeful that China, hit by a 10% tariff, will end up cutting a deal. The euro rebounded from a 2-year low around $1.01 back to $1.03 in one of its biggest round trips in recent years, as fears of an imminent trade war seemed to subside. Crypto traders bought the big dip in Bitcoin and Ether, yet the wild ride has left so many things unclear. As JP Morgan's Michael Ferroli points out, it has increased policy uncertainty in a way that is hard to reverse. European stock futures rose only 0.1% in Asia. China on Tuesday imposed tariffs on some US imports in a swift response to new US duties on Chinese goods, raising the stakes in the showdown between the world's top 2 economies, even as President Donald Trump offered reprieves to Mexico and Canada. Additionally, 10% tariff across all Chinese imports into the US came into effect at 12:01 a.m. European time on Tuesday, 05:01 GMT, after Trump repeatedly warned Beijing it was not doing enough to halt the flow of illicit drugs into the United States. Within minutes, China's finance ministry said it would impose levies of 15% for US coal and LNG and 10% for crude oil, farm equipment, and a small number of trucks, as well as big engine sedans shipped to China from the United States. China also said it was starting an anti-monopoly investigation into Alphabet incorporations, Google, Wow, including both PVH Core, the holding company for brands including Calvin Klein, and US biotechnology company Illumina, on a list for potential sanctions in China. Separately, China's Commerce Ministry and its Customs Administration said it is imposing export controls on some metals that are critical for electronics, military equipment, and solar panels. A 10% duty China announced on electric trucks imported from the United States could apply to future sales for Elon Musk's Cybertruck, a niche often Tesla has been promoting in China. Tesla had no immediate comment. China's new tariffs on the targeted US exports will start on February 10, giving Washington and Beijing some time to try and reach a deal that Chinese policymakers have indicated they hope to strike with Trump. China's countermeasures were limited in scope compared to the Trump administration's across the board tax on imports, a continuation of Beijing's more measured response to this round of trade tensions with the United States. This is where we wrap it up on this episode of Atn Business on Atlantic Television Network. Before we go, a quick look at our top stories. Investment: Abia targets 120 billion in IGR in 2025. On power sector, $200 billion naira per monthly electricity subsidy benefits rich Nigerians. Tinubu aids. Forest market, CBN extends $25,000 weekly forestry sales to BDCs till May 30. And on cybercrime, EFCC arraigns 42 foreigners, firm over 792 cryptocurrency romance fraud. And on financial statement, Geregu makes 137 billion naira. PAT rises 71%, declares 21.25 billion naira dividends. And on trade war, braces for impact as US tariffs signal fresh inflation. Also on trade war, Ramaphosa reacts as Trump cuts off funding to South Africa. When you're open for advertisement, bookings and commercials, you can connect with us on all our ATN socials, on Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok Atlantic TV Network 1, on Twitter Atlantic TV Net, or you can watch us live on our website at www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. I am Favour Chikwesiri Michael. Thank you for watching.